On Point is brought to you by Dargin Global.
A very good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of On Point. I'm Patricia Kay.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
And we've got lots to talk about. The strike at UTEC.
At UTEC. I mean, you know, I find it unacceptable. Students have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, you know, their education is disrupted because of this. And I put the blame on the administration at UTEC and the government. And the fact of the matter is that you can't owe people money. And then, you know, when I heard the Minister of Education coming on and talking about, well, we can't afford to give you this money. No, you owe the people the money. Don't go to them with that sort of attitude. Say to them, listen, guys, I'm going to give you 400 million now and then, you know, we'll see what we can do in a month's time to square off with everything. But
I absolutely sympathize with the teachers at UTEC. I think teachers for a very long time, just civil servants in general, have been the beast of burden. And the economy owes a lot to Jamaica's civil servants, teachers especially.
But I mean,
and I think they continue to carry the burden.
The fact of the matter is that you sign an agreement to them and
an agreement that you set the terms of.
And you say, I owe you this money and I'm going to pay, and then you don't pay them, and then you tell them that they have to hold strain because they have no choice.
And the UTEC administration, they have a lot of licks to take because apparently communication was made to them very early by the government, and they chose not to pass that on to the teachers, which is why they're in the hole that they're in right now.
I think the UTEC administration will have the primary responsibility for the, you know, for what has happened, but the government has a responsibility.
I can't blame the teachers for putting their foot down. I really can't blame the lecturers for putting their foot down and standing their ground. And far too often, change is agitated in the country because people block road. Because in a sense, this is a block road. This is an academic block road. And far too often, we have to get down to that place for there to be any kind of change in the country. And so they understand that academic as it may be, at that level, they still need to do what they need to do to get their money.
To get your money that you earn, you have to go out there and you have to protest.
It's rough.
That can't be right.
I also see the sentiment of the students as well. I've been seeing some circulated WhatsApp messages to lecturers not wanting to break the picket line because students confused. We're coming up towards term end. There are papers due, there are presentations to be made. Teachers have given access to the students, their personal cell numbers, and they're reaching out and saying, hey, what do we do? And the teachers are saying, I can't, so you can't break the picket line. I know the students must be in a difficult position.
Yeah, they are in a very difficult position. What I know is it's going to hurt the brand of UTEC big time. You know, I think a lot of people might think second and third time before. But there are frustrations
on the other side of the board as well. I mean, you talk to people who are adjunct lecturers at both universities who talk about the pains it takes to actually get their money. Suppliers to both universities who bemoan how difficult it is to actually get paid by these institutions. There is a difficulty. There is a money management difficulty that we need to look at. And so this whole matter of the financing of institutions, of education, is an important one, which is why we're focusing on it in the show today.
Yes.
Anything else that stood out for you this week?
I don't know that there was anything else.
I know one thing for me, the drought is over. When I heard Evan Thompson make that declaration that the drought is over, I said amen, and immediately I started to look at the price of tomatoes.
I don't know why it took so long for the drought to be over, because I know the other day so much rain was falling and the dam was still at 30%.
I know, and that was one of the questions that people had. There's a variance.
What has happened is that the rain pattern has changed, and we have not changed our infrastructure to adapt to that rain pattern.
We're rainfalling, we're not catching water, and that's going to be the problem. All right, folks, so we've got a lot to talk about in the show today. First up, we're talking tertiary education and how to fund it. The deregistration numbers coming out of many universities far too high. How do we fix it? Should the government fix it? Should parents fix it? We'll talk about it on the show.
And then later on in the show, we'll talk to some representatives from the UA Mona Guild who will be here to tell us about the entrepreneurship competition. But first, let's take a look back at some of the top business stories of the week.
At number 5, Google has agreed to buy smartwatch maker Fitbit for $2.1 billion in cash. Analysts say the move could shore up Google's hardware business while also potentially increasing antitrust scrutiny. After the announcement, Fitbit shares jumped 16%. The acquisition is Google's second major purchase this year after it agreed to pay $2.6 billion for cloud software provider Looker in June. At number 4, reports coming out of Latin America is that Colombia-based Gilinski Group plans to acquire the regional banking arm of CIBC First Caribbean. Neither party has confirmed the acquisition, but sources familiar with the deal say the Gilinski Group either acquired or aims to acquire 70% of CIBC First Caribbean for $2.2 billion. At number 3, Republic Financial Holdings Limited has now closed its acquisition of 7 Scotiabank operations. Republic has formally acquired Scotia's operations in Anguilla, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Martin, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The acquisition will add 350 team members to its staff complement, US $1.5 billion to the group's total asset size, and $20 million to its net profits. At number 2, Proven Realty is investing $2.5 billion Jamaican dollars to construct its latest development called Via at Braemar Avenue in New Kingston. The development will have 99 units comprised of 51 studio apartments, 31 bedroom units, and 18 two-bedroom units. Units will cost between 21 and 42 million Jamaican dollars. The delivery date for the development is July 2021. And at number 1 this week, Prime Minister Andrew Holness led the Jamaican delegation which participated in the China International Import Exposition this week. Prime Minister Andrew Holness also had bilateral discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping in a bid to strengthen relations between both countries. Meanwhile, China says it is willing to work with Jamaica to advance the relations between China and other Caribbean countries, while working together to uphold multilateral trade systems and safeguard the common interests of developing countries.
When we come back, an interesting model to finance tertiary education, right here on Point.
Welcome back to On Point. It's one of those topics that keep coming up all the time. How do we finance tertiary education as a country? And I mean, we really need to, because we need more people educated at the tertiary level. And we're trying to find out solutions to this today. Joining us now is the co-founder and chief consultant for the Caribbean Leadership Reimagination Initiative at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Canute Thompson, who's putting forward an interesting proposal. Welcome to On Point.
Thank you. Hey, Dr. Thompson.
Yes.
Good evening, Patrick.
I'm going to get the controversy out right out the gate, because this is the kind of thing people have been craving out of the university. Reimagining of everyday Jamaican solutions. This is one, but we're looking for a whole lot more.
Yes.
Why would there be a difficulty in having that pipeline of solutions coming out of the university?
I'm not sure there's a difficulty of
there
pipeline.
Isn't. So it's an unfair.
Yes, I think
an unfair criticism.
I think one of the issues is that colleagues at the university have not found sufficiently creative ways or reimaginative ways of transmitting their ideas to the general public.
Yours we know of because it came in the newspaper.
In the newspaper, right.
Yes.
In fact, I've lovingly critiqued my colleagues by suggesting that the reliance on regular academic journals to post their ideas is an old-fashioned way of engaging, might I say, regular people.
And not agitating for change.
Yes. So in addition to the typical academic work in books and journals, you have to supplement that with public discourse in regular media, in social media. That's how the world is going. In fact,
is it that they don't want to do it, or they just don't have the capacity to make that transition?
Or they're just old school?
Yeah. Well, I think it might. You're a little bit too blunt. I think it's a combination of those factors. But I think perhaps the most critical one is perhaps not taking the time to engage different ways of communicating. There's a piece of research coming out of City University of New York which found that in the humanities, which is my discipline, only about 22% of what we produce gets read because we're using regular journals. And what some of these colleagues are now doing, they are on radio, they are on social media, they write in the newspapers, and that is how they get a chance to influence public policy. Because no minister of anything is going to sit and read a journal that is 22 pages long.
And I remember people like Carl Stone and Don Robotham and those guys, they used to write regularly and influence public policy.
Carl Stone would write on a Sunday and a Wednesday. I remember during a brief time, I was in a place called Salem, Westmoreland, Beeson Spring in the bush. And I would drive 20 miles to get the newspaper.
To read Carl Stone?
To read Carl Stone.
Yes, Carl Stone's powerful.
Yes. Empirical and analytic relevant.
So he made a transition very well.
He made a transition very well. Right.
Don Robotham, I remember Mikey
yes.
Witter.
That's correct.
Michael Witter, those guys.
But those guys represent that generation. I think the colleagues of my generation have dropped the ball somewhat because we have not kept pace with them. Of course, some colleagues, like Sams Vaughan, for example, she had a compelling piece in Sunday's, one of the papers Sunday. And there are others who do write, but the truth is, Caroline Cooper, controversial in her own way, and necessarily so. The academic must push the envelope.
Absolutely. Let's get to the actual idea that you put on the table about funding tertiary education. Explain it for those who would not have read the article.
Right, thank you. So the big question is, how do we get to move the number of people who are accessing tertiary education from the low levels it currently is, about 27%, to what developed country status has in 60s, 70s, 80%. How do you do that? You do that by creating access, by making it possible for ordinary people, if I might use the word, to afford tertiary education. You would follow the news a couple of months ago where the university had to deregister a number of students because they could not pay their tuition fees. And many do not even apply because they can't afford it. This particular proposal looks at how government and parents can work together to create a substantial fund for funding. So the model proposes that for each child born in Jamaica, the government sets aside a small sum of 5,000 Jamaican dollars for each child. The information out of the Registrar General suggests that we have about 40-something thousand born each year. Put that 50,000 for the purpose of calculation. If the government were to set aside $5,000 for 50,000 children, that would mean $250 million each year. That $5,000 for each child is a one-time commitment. Next year, it's a different child.
Yes.
With that $250 million, that's $5,000 by 50,000 people.
Yes.
That's $250 million. With that, each parent will be expected to save, to lodge 200 Jamaican dollars per month. 2,500 per year, roughly $200 per month.
Which is doable.
Which is doable. Easily. Even a person on path can do that. All right. So that $200 per month, multiplied by 12 months for the year, multiplied by the 50,000 children over 18 years.
Which is when you get to the point of matriculation for university.
Beautiful, right. That translates to $2,250 million.
To spend on 50,000 children.
When you put that $2,250 million and add that to the original $250 million that government had put aside, and you leave that for 18 years at 6% interest, tax-free, because that length of time.
Hopefully, they don't leave it in Jamaican dollars.
Problem. Yes. At 6%, at the end of 18 years, that grows to $70 billion.
So it's really like a pension fund.
It's like a pension
for
precisely,
education.
for education.
Yeah, but here my problem with it.
Yes.
I remember when I was at U, long time ago, when I was doing my first degree, and they introduced the whole thing about paying fees, because we didn't pay fees up until that time. And they had increased the education tax.
Yes.
But the education tax is going to the consult fund now. And
that is my question. What does the education tax do right now? Because I can only liken to what you're talking about to a pension fund or similar to the NHT trust.
Right.
There are differences. But I also see where some of the difficulties that exist in the NHT trust could exist in this model as well. But let's first talk about the ed tax. What does that do?
Regrettably, as Dennis has said, it goes into the consult fund. The intention back in, it was in the 80s, I think it was introduced,
in the 80s.
was that this money would be set aside to deal with education
Siaga
exclusively.
was the Prime Minister at the time.
Mr. Siaga was the Prime Minister at the time. But like most other things, the purpose for which the fund was established gets cloudy, and the money, everything is just lumped together in the consult fund.
Affair with your idea.
Yes.
We see it with the NHT.
Yes.
It's the kitty that people dip into when they want to bail out something, when they want a lump sum of cash to be able to do something. We see it happening with the NHT.
Here's the difference.
What would we need to put? What strictures in place to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Two differences. One, the bulk of the savings will be from the parents themselves.
Their money.
Their money. So whereas government would be contributing 250 million, the parents collectively over the period would be contributing 2.2 billion.
Where would the money go? Who would be the person, the custodian of the funds?
The mechanism I think that would be best is that the financial institutions would hold this money. Regular banks, insurance companies, even pension funds if their rules allow, all right? With the understanding that this money is sacred, untouchable for 18 years. Parents can't borrow it. It can't be used for any emergency purpose. It has a single purpose, that at maturity in 18 years, it becomes, it's available to the child for higher education or for some development purpose. Because
if the government doesn't take it up, this is a perfect product for an entrepreneur out there, a financial institution to take it and run and decide that, look here, this is a way that you can finance your child's education. Because one of the challenges that I see with doing this wholesale is the same kind of issue that we have with the NHT, where we still have issues with people who leave secondary school not being able to matrculate into tertiary. So even if the $1.something million is sitting there and available to you to go and study, you're not qualified.
Right. So you'll have situations of that kind. So two things there. Well, there are a number of solutions, but two would be considered. With the knowledge that that child has, that there is a fund available for him to access tertiary education, hopefully it provides a motivation to be more disciplined in your high school years. The second thing, though, is that the fund would not be exclusively and narrowly for university. It will be for any form of higher education. So there might be a youngster who has done exceedingly well. The guy is producing apps and he already has a patent at age 17. And he wants to use his money to expand his business. Within some limited and defined pathways, that fund could be used for him to expand his business, to buy equipment, to buy machinery, But it's for this money is for that child's entry into adulthood and his or her participation in national development.
Yeah, but what's the difference between your fund though and a parent just saying, listen, I am going to just put aside the $200 per month for my child until the child gets to 18.
Yes, there are three differences. The first is that if the parent opens that account, some parents will have the temptation to claim access to it. They borrow it to buy the tire for the vehicle or to pay the insurance. And so you're on the risk of
But then how do you propose that the money is deducted from the parent then?
Right. So there are two ways you could do that. I was going to share some other ways, but in relation to your first question, but let me address this question. The deduction in the first 5 years or so would come out of the public education You could also, so the parent is doing it voluntarily.
Yes.
Or there could be a mechanism whereby it is a salary deduction. But remember,
if you have a job.
If you have a job. But remember, it's only $200, and you're expecting Mary and Joe and Janet and Peter, who do farming and sell on the street, that they are going to do the same. So it will require that sense of personal discipline. But here's the big part. It's an 18-year fund. When that child gets to age 5 or 6 and has started to attend school, the school now becomes the collecting agency on behalf of the bank, or the bank sends a representative to the school, and each child will take that pride in handing over their $200 each month to that representative from the bank. But so the responsibility for that.
Isn't it something like the Heritage Foundation? You know,
yes, it's similar. Right. It's similar. It's a similar concept.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's a Canadian fund that basically contributed. The way I think this works is that it works because a small percentage of people go to higher education.
Yes.
So the fact that a small percentage goes, it means that most of them will not be able to access the funds, and the funds are available for that small percentage. Right. And it can, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but there are a lot of practical issues. I give you one, I throw one now, which is might be a little controversial. You love this one. That someone after 5 years find out that the child is not his.
Yes.
But it's tied to the child, not tied to the father.
Right, exactly.
But he would have contributed all this money.
Go find the father and you and him work that out.
Yes, yes. So you're going to have these nuances.
Yeah.
But and so the rules for this fund would need to be agreed, you know, through some kind of stakeholder consultation. Somebody would sit and develop some basic rules, and then you have a series of consultations, so that you get a real community involvement, national involvement. Sorry.
I was about to say, make the argument for why we need more degrees. Because there are university students who will say, I have my degree, I don't have a job.
Yes. Right, so a couple of things then. One, having a degree and not having a job is one side of the problem we face. Jobs being available and not being qualified is another side of the problem we face. This particular proposal is targeted at addressing that side where there are opportunities, there are possibilities. But sitting in between the two probably is the critical importance of equipping people to create jobs.
Right.
So it is less about finding a job and more about giving you the skills, giving you the opportunities, giving you the training to be able to create your own jobs.
Which in many instances a degree can do.
Which a degree can do. So what that degree is doing is equipping you with knowledge and skills and showing you options and possibilities to become an entrepreneur, to become an engineer, to become an app developer, anything, to become a farmer, to become a processor. Yes. Right? So higher education provides you with advanced knowledge to add value to existing reality.
Yes.
So how do you implement this though? Because I mean, it's one thing to have the concept, but then implementation of it.
Yes.
And you know, where do you see that this can be done?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for this conversation. This is part of the implementation because your listeners include policymakers and people who influence policy. And so the discussion is there. I was on another network last night discussing this thing. And so the first step really in terms of an implementation strategy is to make a case that defines what the initiative is seeking to accomplish. I think the case for creating access for more people to higher education, I think that is made. Development requires that we increase from 27% to a bigger number. Showing to ordinary parents that this is possible is one of the ways of creating a kind of conscious mob to say to politicians, yes, we support this. So there are 4 sequential steps that would be taken from a policy implementation point of view to get the political directorate to buy into it, and I've gotten some feedback from both sides of the wicket expressing support for it. having gotten that support, you want to now open the conversation to other influencers about how it can be implemented. For example, now with $250 million, where will the government invest this? With 50,000 people, how will you handle the collection of this small sum of money each month without it being a costly venture? Because in the banking system, it might cost the fees to collect $200 might be greater than $200. So you have to build around it some protocol and some mechanism that allows for the full value of $200 to come to the parent.
Yeah. Dr. Thompson, is food for thought, and this conversation is important, and it has to continue beyond here. Yeah. And that's it for this segment. We take a quick break. More on point.
All right.
Welcome back to On Point. The UE Guild says their entrepreneurship competition is meant to develop the entrepreneurial skill within students, and on campus, it's to spread the growth and development of entrepreneurship. It runs for just about 4 months, and we are talking about that competition today on Point. We have two gentlemen who are very integral in the running of the competition. We have Jamie Martin, who is director of the Guild Entrepreneurship Competition, and we also have Sevon McIntosh, who is vice president of properties and special initiatives at the Guild. Hello, gentlemen, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Jamie, let me start with you. Just tell us a little bit about the competition.
Well, this year we've decided to branch out per se. Usually I have one main competition where you have just 8 entrepreneurs and they go to some workshops, and then at the end they just vie for some prizes. But this year we've decided to really incorporate the entire campus because we want to foster the entire campus's entrepreneurial spirit. So alongside the main competition, we have side competitions for the average student, anyone who has like an idea. So let's say, for instance, you're in SciTech, or you're in humanities, you're in mid-sci, but you just feel like you have ideas as well. This gives you the opportunity to really branch out.
So how do you structure it? Because you still have the main competition. How do you decide on what those parallel competitions are? Tell me, walk me through the actual structure.
All right, so the main competitions, you have around 5 to 6 workshops focusing on the various pillars of entrepreneurship. So you have finances, legality, you have
marketing,
all of those. And then the side competitions now, as I said, they're more of the engagement type, because we're not looking for those who are fully versed in entrepreneurship. They just want, as I said, to get like experience. So we'll have like short 1-minute videos or quick elevator pitches on a weekly basis.
Got you. Is this the first time that the competition is being held?
No, it's
no. Tell me a little bit about the start, back to the genesis.
I think it was even before my time at the university. As I say, it started out of the genuine interest of trying to get students to support themselves through the university and to, of course, build the entrepreneurial spirit. And it's under my portfolio as Vice President of Properties and Special Initiatives because I'm responsible for what they consider student opportunities and for students to create things for themselves. And we saw how necessary it was and how engaged students were as a result of it. And as Jamie said, this year in particular, outside of the side competitions and the main competition, I asked of him to ensure that even the offerings that, the content that is generated via the workshops are made accessible to those who might just want to learn one thing or two things and then eventually engineer some sort of interest in entrepreneurship.
So Jamie, I've been involved in a national business competition where the universities compete.
Yes.
And one of the things I noticed, I don't know if you noticed it also, is that as the competition goes along year after year, the ideas get a little more innovative, and the ability to earn money gets even stronger. You find that with it?
Yeah, definitely, because every year, as I said, more and more businesses pop up, right? But as an entrepreneur, you can't walk down the street and see 5 people selling mangoes and then go to start selling mangoes. You have to really find a niche market, get creative, because there are a lot of opportunities out there. Really and truly, you'll be surprised some of the stuff that people are actually thinking about right now. So
ideas are plenty, but have any of the ideas in the competitions gone one step further and perhaps been commercialized? How difficult do the students find that step? Are they even trying to make that step?
Well, Jamie himself, he was a competitor in the competition.
Oh.
Yes, he's actually a sponsor. He's on the shirt now.
Oh, nice. What's your business? Let me give you some free airtime.
Ruffian. So we sell beard oils and we try to create a safe haven for beardsmen all across Jamaica. Yeah, so
you can't shave your face now, right? Because you can't be selling beards. The beard products and you don't have a beard, so you're stuck with it for the life of the business.
Funny enough, I think last year I actually shaved it off completely because what happened that I realized
business went down at the time.
No, actually, I realized that those with the stubble and the short beards, it was difficult for me to relate to them. And so I decided, all right, I want to guide them through because I have some people who they're just starting out and they don't know what to do. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a quick series on it. So I decided I'm going to shave it down and then just try and guide them.
In the same way that I guess women who are growing their hair, they have all these tutorial videos, why not your beard? So you actually conceptualized the idea from the competition.
Yeah.
Now a functioning business.
Yeah.
I love that. How has the business been?
It's been going well, I mean, we're currently expanding right now. We actually have a booth at Kingston Night Market right now.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, so as we go along, we're really trying to, how should I say, reach out more because we're also running a Roughember promotion where we're going to various universities, schools and boys' homes and try to mentor the youth because we want to.
So you actually fund yourself now with the business going through university?
Actually, the business still needs funding.
Still needs funding.
Yeah, so, but
it helps though.
Definitely. But as I said, because we're expanding now, more capital is needed.
This started in September. Talk to me about some of the businesses that are coming through the channel that are going to be competing come February.
Well, you have one business called Totally Toes. Yes, a lovely young lady on toes, where she does pedicures and
on campus?
On campus.
And the university is open to this kind of thing because that's one of the questions that I always had. High school, they're adamant. You are here to learn. You're not here to make money. And there's some entrepreneurial minds that existed in high school that got shut down because of school rules. You is a little bit more flexible.
Well, what we're starting to find now is that the halls, George Allen is doing it towards they're creating entrepreneurship societies that foster and create some sort of haven for people to develop and to be a part of and sustain themselves, really. Yeah.
One of the things, and Patria can relate to it. Patria is much younger than me, so maybe she can relate to it. And someone said it on our program last week, 20 years ago, if you tell someone you're an entrepreneur, they would turn up their nose at you. And nowadays, people are proud to say they're entrepreneurs, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
It's very true.
Is that the aspiration for you, gentlemen?
For me.
You want to be, you currently are an entrepreneur. Is this the path that you're going to stay with? Are there other businesses up your sleeve? Is this the one that you want to build out and grow?
This will be the main one, but I definitely want to expand my repertoire and dabble in various.
But you're still a student. What you're studying?
Management studies and marketing.
Right up your alley. What about yourself?
Well, higher education and management. But I think in the future, it's something that I want to foster in the educational space eventually, should I run an institution, of course.
So you're doing a master's in education?
Higher educational management.
Or you can get entrepreneurial with the education too.
Absolutely.
I mean, Gordon's way we did it.
Most definitely. And I think there's also a requirement on the part of school administrators to recognize the importance of entrepreneurship and that many of their students are going to have to find their way by setting up their own business and planting that seed. So it's important for you to get it.
Because personally, what I'm trying to look at, because there are certain businesses that, for example, if somebody's a tailor, they're going to use electricity from the university, and that might become an inconvenience on the part of the university. So what I'm trying to look at are ways to ensure that there is no legal issues or no challenges on the part of those students.
You don't get a fat light bill from the university.
So to facilitate them still supporting themselves, and of course the university still meeting its mandate to serve its students.
But you had said that the competition started because you wanted to give people the ability to fund themselves. Eh? How successful has that been? Are people able to fund themselves even partially with the entrepreneurial things they've developed?
Definitely. Even last year's winners, On Time Chicken, yeah, they actually started right on Irving And right now they've branched out and they're delivering their food to various
catering
locations.
services. And
But they
so
deliver on campus?
Yeah.
and all around.
Oh, really?
Even the winners before them, Rush Alert, their system is being used now by the university. It has been, they worked with the Ministry of National Security and developed the app properly, and now the university is going to adopt it to include it in its security process.
What is that app?
It's an app that students can use to indicate if there's any sort of, what do you call it? Unscrupulous individual or they feel unsafe on campus.
So a sort of
response.
Virtual neighborhood watch.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's supporting you? What kind of prizes are they looking for? Because young people don't do anything for free at this point. They need rewards. What are the rewards in the competition this year other than your own business?
Well, for this year we have, well, Jane is offering the cash prize, and what we've asked of them is also to through one of the subdivision of JN to guide the winners. So it's $200,000, and then it's 150,000 for the third place.
Oh, fantastic.
After the competition, of course, they get filtered into another competition. So we're trying to ensure that they continue to grow and earn even more funding for themselves.
Only the Toast Chick has gotten a plug so far. Let's talk about a few of the other businesses.
Well, you have Good Cosmetics. She has all natural ingredients for makeup and such. Wonderful, actually. She has a website running, and she's actually branching out as well.
Fantastic.
Yes, when she came to the competition, she already had everything planned out. It was really experience and such. You also have House of Health. It's a dancer who decided that he wants to open a massage parlor on campus. Yeah, so he wants to help the athletes and other dancers. Anyone who feel like, sometimes they have a rough week and they have that tension. Yes, he definitely relieve that and such.
Fantastic. So those are the three businesses, or there are others?
There are multiple.
Yeah, there are more.
Are there others that are going to come on stream within the next couple of months, or you already have the cohort that's going to take you through to February 6th?
No. The top 5 selection is actually going to be in the end of November.
Yes.
So right now we're working with all 8.
Gotcha.
All 8 look very promising, so I don't know how the top 5 is going to go.
Yeah, so we're cutting them down, and then we're having one from the side competition entering, and then one entrepreneur from the Western campus. That's in Mobile.
Oh, so it's national, the national competition.
Yes.
We go through these cyclical phases where some professions become sexy, and then you have an influx of a whole heap of people in the profession, and then a couple of years down the road, nobody gets any work. We've seen it with the teachers, we've seen it with attorneys, we've seen it with a lot of professions. Are we going to see it with entrepreneurs? Because that's a new sexy profession.
I don't believe so. What I found interesting, especially working with the competition for multiple years, is that the entrepreneurs, their ideas are adjusting to the changes in society. Take, for example, I think most of the entrants are using more products that are more environment friendly. So they're moving with the times. They're really moving with the times, and so they're remaining relevant in our society.
Your generation is one that agitates for change. I can recall a time gone by when people were very passive, where they kind of allowed things to happen. I'm feeling a fire in a lot of people that I meet from your generation, that they ain't taking it. They're creating the world that they want to see. Is that something that Dennis and I can look forward to from you guys?
Definitely. I mean, there's a saying that goes, the only thing that's constant is change, And as such, the fire will forever keep burning. Everyone really and truly wants to make a name for themselves. And not only for themselves, but they want to be able to look for generations to come. So you will see everyone really, a lot of individuals really pushing their best foot forward and trying to make that change happen, because a lot of individuals, they really want to be the shapers and changers of society.
But they still won't vote. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a change. I think the last election saw an increase in youth participation.
Yes.
So it's once the politicians keep us interested, then they should get us participating.
But it's not just a Jamaican thing, because in the US too, I mean, young people just don't get involved in voting. I don't understand why.
It's a very interesting thing. Go ahead.
I think for us, we are a very convenient generation. So if it's not an easy process for us,
true.
That's true.
I
That's
think
true.
if they actually do make maybe the voting process online, then more than likely you'll see a lot of participation. So I won't want to say we're lazy, we're convenient.
Do entrepreneurs today want to get, your generation of entrepreneurs expect to get rich? Because what you expect to earn from your living has been different for different people. Some people just want to be comfortable. They want to be able to take a one vacation every now and again. You want to achieve the basics, house and look after your children. Do you guys want to get rich from your businesses?
I want to be very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Yeah, not just for me personally. For me, as I said, I'm looking for generation as well. Yes, I want continuity.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good thing about entrepreneurship, you know, really and truly. You can't get more than what you put in. So you can really have somewhat of a say in the outcome. So if you want to just be comfortable, then you can put in comfortable work. But if you want to be wealthy beyond your wildest measure, then well, you have to put in the extra.
That's a great note, folks, to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jamie and Sevon, and I look forward to the results of the competition in February.
All right, thank you.
So thanks for joining us, and when we come back, we'll have numbers and word on the street.
Welcome back to On Point. Now, we've been talking about tertiary education and specifically how you finance tertiary education. Let's take a look at how people around the world do it.
Luxembourg leads the way when it comes to the amount of money being spent per student for tertiary education. That country spends just under $42,000 on each student. The USA comes in a distant second, spending almost $27,000 per student. The United Kingdom invests some $20,000 in each of its citizens who goes to college, while Australia spends $14,159 for each student to access tertiary education, and Austria forks out $13,138 per student.
And our On Point team hit the streets and asked, should the government fund the UA and UTech equally?
Yes, because they're both the same college and both striving to do the same things.
Yes, I think they should have, because it's the same school. You understand? And when it comes down to education, you can, unbalance it. You have to put it on a balance scale. That's my view.
I think personally, they should be getting equal rights because it's a Jamaican institution, and I feel that each and every individual in this country should be treated equally.
Yes, they should fund both institutions equally, as they're both tertiary and they should be on the same level.
I think funding UTech and UA would actually be a good reach out to young people in our whole, because helping the human resource of a country, which is the most important resource, would actually help the country build economically, isn't it? So helping funding UA and UTech will definitely help the country, isn't it? Equally.
I believe that they should fund UTech and UA equally, because our Jamaican people are going to both schools. They're both accredited, and I believe that, I don't see why UA should get most of the funding and UTech doesn't. Right, of course, UA is more affiliated in that way. However, UTech still provides a great amount of courses to study, and also, I just don't see why it's not done equally. Right, so if you invest in the education system, just do it across the board, and everybody can benefit.
Well, believe me, I think that UW deserves, about say more than UTech at this moment here, right? Why? Because of the many departments that they have over UTech. They're wishing everybody success and solidarity to UTech.
Interesting show today, Dennis.
Yeah.
I particularly love that discussion about the funding of tertiary education.
Which was the first
discussion.
discussion.
I know it's a pain for a lot of people, even with all the scholarships, this 5K, all of these grants and bursaries, it's still never enough.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. It's just how you operationalize it. I personally think that it should be made compulsory by law, that people should put aside a certain amount every month for their child's education. When you think about it though, that's what the education tax was. But it go into this big black hole called the consolidated fund and never come out.
You know, it pains my heart that there are parents who feel like spending on education is an expense, is a burden, and they will cost children about the amount of money that they have to spend beyond secondary education to be able to send them. And it's not fair. It's not fair, and it perpetuates this cycle within families.
Of poverty.
Of poverty. Of poverty. I mean, I can think of so many people that I know that education has been the turnaround for not just them, but for generations after them. And yes, the entrepreneurial spirit can do it. But I've always found that the entrepreneurial spirit coupled with know-how, official know-how on a piece of paper, can get you very far.
Yeah, so I mean, I personally think that if you're going to move a country forward, it has to be with a more educated set of people. You can't do it without that. I mean, education is something that you don't know what you're missing until you have it. If you don't have it, you don't know. And I think that, I mean, look at Singapore. Singapore was made what it is now because they educated their people.
There are no two ways about it, absolutely. I want to shift gears to the entrepreneurial folks, the young people who are at university doing this entrepreneurial competition. I get excited at the thought of entrepreneurship because I love the idea that people kind of take matters in their own hands and recognize that they don't have to get a job, but they can actually create jobs.
The job.
And I love that, but it's not an easy road.
No, it's not. But you know, I think that what is happening now at the universities, I mean, what they're doing now is imparting a lot more knowledge and experience to them. So it's becoming easier for people to accept and do it. And the truth is that it is now that they must do it and fail. You know, they can afford to fail now. And failure is something that teaches you.
We have to look at the whole education system in its entirety because planting that seed of entrepreneurship and finding ways to pay for the education if you matriculate to tertiary is one thing, but I'm still left with that frightening thought that came out of Royal Reed's mouth, that only 1 out of every 3 people who will leave high school leave with a high school diploma, leave with any kind of subject. So we still have to find a way. As much as we provide the income, if only that 1 out of 3 is capable of moving on, we have a lot to fix.
You know how it starts? Parenting. Once you have good parents, then you'll see that start to improve. Until you have that, you're not going to see it. In the US, for example, I mean, this whole matter of parenting is a very serious thing. Here it's not.
And there's nothing to stop families right now from starting their own trust. Every time a child is born, try and do a version of the model that Doc suggested. Put down a money,
a small
and
amount
every month you put down something towards tertiary education and see how much you save up in 18 years. We can do it, folks. And that's where we're going to wrap the show today, folks. Thank you so much to the On Point team, the crew who work so very hard to make this show happen every week. Thanks to the guests, to you at home for tuning in. We'll be back next week. I'm Patria Kay.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
On Point was brought to you by Dodge & Global.